Can I Not Marry audio web novel chapter 33, Men. They always wants pride and self-esteem. After a brief introduction, Du Lacey finally knew who these people were. It turns out these were Lian Jun's friends from school. The one dressed in the orange sweatshirt who came over first is Huo Xiaokai. Then the one dressed in white shirt with glasses is Luo Jiang. Sitting together with Luo Jiang is Luo Hao, Luo Jiang's younger twin brother. In fact, there was nothing strange about twins. However, this pair of twins' girlfriends were also twins, one named Dami and the other named Xiaomi, which was really strange. She was very suspicious of how the four people differentiate each other. Or should she say there's no difference _ then there's Huo Xiaokai, who also brought along his sister Huo Yuji, the big-breasted sister who speak harshly. Her name sounded very nice name. In addition, Huo Yuji also brought along a few friends. There were females and males. Du Lacey couldn't remember who was who. Within this group of people, there were an individual that particularly attracted Du Lacey's attention. This person was wearing a sky blue shirt coupled with a narrow black and white striped tie, appearing very fashionable. He sat on the grass, not once coming into the conversation. The only reason Du Lacey will pay attention to this person is purely because of his double peach blossom eyes, slightly squinting, appearing somewhat arbitrary, somewhat indolent. However, ever since she arrived, not once did his eyes halt his stares. Being continuously stared by such a pair of eyes made one feel a little uncomfortable. What is it? Lian Jun detected there was something wrong with her and gently asked. Du Lacey regained her conscience and embarrassedly smiled. Nothing. It must be because she was frightened whilst riding the bike, so she's hallucinating. Just one president willing to look her way was a miracle on its own. Why would there be another person who also blindly and willing stare at her for that long? She withdrew her thoughts and spun the chicken wing skewers within her hands. The chicken wings charcoal nicely on top of the fire. It seems to be very delicious. Since coming out, Du Lacey also haven't eaten anything. Upon seeing the chicken wings, she couldn't help but lick her fingers. In her heart she silently sighed. Chicken wings, you are indeed a chicken wing. Smiling, she picked up the chicken wings. Just as she was preparing to go in for a bite, Lian Jun appeared from the corner of her eyes with a half smile while staring at her. His eyes seemingly to carry a slightly meaning. His scattered dark eyes seems to be flashing a hint. He obviously took a fancy to her. Chicken wings. Using his glaze to make her submit is really indeed the president's style. Du Lacey reluctantly took off the chicken wing that almost reached her mouth, and then grabbing a bottle of chili powder, sprinkling a little before handing it over to Lian Jun. Here, you eat it. Looking at the chicken wing covered in chili powder, Lian Jun slightly frowned, pushed her hands back. You eat it instead. She already sprinkled chili powder over it. How is she going to eat it now? No, you eat it. Du Lacey said warmly and pushed the chicken wings back towards him. You eat it. 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 Quote ellipsis quote. So like this, the two of them appeared to be doing tai chi, pushing the roasted chicken wings here and there. At the every end they animatedly pushed the fragrant crispy fragile chicken wings until it turned cold. At this moment, Du Lacey became very angry. The president used his meaningful glance to force the chicken wings out of her mouth, causing her to reluctantly part with her beloved chicken wings and respectfully offer it with both hands. However, it just so happens he doesn't want it anymore, making it appear as if she's forcing it upon him. Such actions, not only has he wronged her, more so he has wronged the chicken wing god. It's really too much. Summoning her courage, Du Lacey loudly shouted, you eat it. It would have been a happy and peaceful grassland barbecue party. However, this shout of Du Lacey have caused everyone present to stop chatting, staring straight at Du Lacey. At this moment, Du Lacey was completely embarrassed. What was the most important thing for a man? Self-esteem. And what is more important than self-esteem? It is your self-esteem and pride in front of your brothers. With so many friends present, she actually discarded his pride and yelled at him. This is simply asking for suicide. Once Du Lacey's fierce temper cooled down, she regained her senses and discovered that the president's facial expression gradually changed. Being very quick-witted, she used the most nauseating voice in her 20 years of living to speak. Honey, don't be polite with me. Eat well. Thunder in the sky, exploded mines on the ground. Without an exception, all those present developed goosebumps. Even the cold chicken wings raided out its oil. Lian Jun's mouth twitched staring at the cold chicken wings covered in chili powder. He hesitated for a moment before slowly stretched out his hand. This chicken wing looks good. After he stretched out his hands, he made his first step over towards Du Lacey and took the chicken wings from her hands. When Du Lacey finally understood his actions, the chicken wings within her hands have entered the corners of his mouth, a pair of peach blossom eyes slightly squinted, seemingly enjoying it. Du Lacey have never been this nausea before. Cow. To eat such an intoxicated cold chicken wing, this is definitely top graded. Suddenly it was silent, those present weren't accustomed to such a scene, they all silly gawked at Lord Jipin eat the chicken wings, so under the watchful eyes others, Lord Jipin leisurely finished the chicken wings before licking his index finger and seductively smiled toward Du Lacey. Thank you. Oh. That moment, Du Lacey thought of Chia-kun, she couldn't help but tearfully cry. Chia-kun, I shouldn't address you as a fox. In front of this guy, you're simply a guinea pig. Xiao Yin, how can you not know how to act in such a situation? Huo Xiaokai reacted with fastest speed, stationing himself in the middle of Du Lacey, Lian Jun and Lord Jipin. The young couple were flirting. What are you doing putting your foot in? So it turns out this Lord Jipin is called Xiao Yin. Being pulled away by Huo Xiaokai, he wasn't angry. Xiao Yin only winked at Du Lacey before walking away. Du Lacey was stupefied. Lian Jun interrupted and unhappily coughed. Go roast me another chicken wing. Du Lacey gave him a look. Didn't you say you didn't want it? Lian Jun looked helpless. In front of so many people my wifey wanted me to eat, how can I refuse? Because of the unexpected events, once again the topic of focus was Lian Jun and Du Lacey. Eric, how did you and your wife met? Luo Jiang asked. Yes, that's right. Dami added with an interested gossip expression. Du Lacey also erected her ears. She really would like to know how the president spread the lie. She didn't expect the president's odious has reached appalling proportions. He obviously thrown his problem and pointed his fingers towards her. I'll let Alice explain it to you guys. Du Lacey tried to weep, but failed to shed a tear. She's a reporter. She'll only reported the true events. We met on the streets. Du Lacey said, and strived to recall that afternoon she and Lian Jun met. A shining diamond ring emerged in her head. You can also met on the streets. Dami arrangly sigh. Then how was the situation? Is it the legend of love at first sight? You watch too many idol dramas. On the side, Luo Jiang disclosed Dami's secret. At this time, Luo Hao suddenly interrupted. What's the use of asking how they met? Why don't we ask Eric how he pursued after Alice's hand? Oh, how did he pursue you? Everyone was particularly interested on this point. This thing. Du Lacey was temporarily speechless. She don't know whether forcing one into marriage is considered pursuing. Because she couldn't figure it out, she turned towards Lian Jun. It was her who pursued me. Lian Jun dismissively said this sentence. Greater than O. Du Lacey was completely embarrassed. That moment, Du Lacey finally understood the reason the president take her out was to satisfy his self-esteem as an outstanding man. To boost to his group of friends that she was the one who pursued him. Men. They always want pride and self-esteem. Du Lacey thought back to this afternoon when Auntie Wu told her about the amount of good things Lian Jun did, and she felt it was time for her to repay the president. Besides, she's just a little unknown small character, she doesn't need what self-esteem. Staring at those who were all swept surprised, Du Lacey nodded. It was I who pursue him. However, Eric is very hard to get. Oh, how did you capture him into your clutches? Huo Xiaokai asked. In fact, it is not difficult. The most important thing is to have a thick skin. After this, Du Lacey's head was filled with melodrama. She began to invent the amazing feat of her pursuing the president. From obtaining his phone number on the streets to sending beloved breakfast to his company, to deliberately creating a counter with Lian Jun during morning runs. While in the evening, opportunistically wait on the road for his return home. In short, all those methods were all prototypes from her written article reports that she wrote while she was still a reporter, Confession of a Stalker. After her endless talk finished, everyone's mouth has become a O shape. After a moment of silence, someone asked, so since you pursued after Eric, you must really love him then? Since Du Lacey was getting worked up, she might as well continue. I took a liking towards him from the first moment I saw him. He is my precious treasure, my everything, the only one for me. After saying that, she was very proudly looked at the president. See how much self-esteem and pride I'm giving you. Lian Jun listened in silence, inadvertently curved his lips. Suddenly, a voice suddenly yelled out. So it turns out this is how one should pursue. No wonder I pursued for so long without success. Du Lacey stood proudly on her reputation while Huo Yuji thoughtfully lowered her head. Hey, what's your mobile phone number? I'll like your help in the future when I take fancy in someone. Huo Yuji very bluntly asked. After this remark was spoken, many beauties found it was very reliable. They quickly surrounded Du Lacey asking for a pursues Taoist scripture. Even Dami and Xiaomi, who had boyfriends, couldn't help but craned their necks to listen in. That moment Du Lacey was thoroughly speechless. No wonder she had no future when she was a reporter. It must be because everything she reported were all true events. No one was willing to read them. So like this, from a silently nameless passerby, Du Lacey suddenly escalate into the most dramatic actress. A group of women stared at her with extremely worship eyes. Even after the president and Huo Shaokai returned from a ball game, Du Lacey's center discussion circle also did not stop down. In one night, her mouth was finally parched and tongue scorched. When that person finally proposed to return home, Du Lacey was only left with half a body of breath. Everyone left one after another. Du Lacey also followed the president to retrieve his bike. Just as they reached their parking spot, the two of them froze. What happened to their bike? You stay and don't leave. I'll go have a look. Lian Jun said. Du Lacey nodded, watched him leave. Once Lian Jun left, a man suddenly jumped out and softly whispered into her ears. What you have just said is a lie, isn't it? Du Lacey was surprised. She retreated a few steps back and turned around to see Xiao Yin. You. What are you talking about? I said, you just deceived them. Xiao Yin crooked a smile and took a step closer towards her. The air was filled with a dangerous atmosphere. Du Lacey was filled with a guilty conscience. She continued to retreat. What deceive others? What I said is true. She wasn't careful and tripped over the stones on the ground. Her foot sprained and fell to the ground. Her ass landed on a stone and she cried out in pain. Hearing her voice, Lian Jun hurriedly ran over and discovered Du Lacey have fallen to the ground. He frowned and asked, how can you still fall from standing? No, I didn't. It's because there was, Du Lacey said and froze in shock. Apart from the surrounding, there wasn't any other shadow. She was not only determined that he wasn't a fox, he must be a weasel. I really don't understand what you're trying to say. Lian Jun let out a sigh and held out his hand. Come on. The bike was stolen. I have already made a phone call to Lao Fang. In a while he will be here to pick us up at the intersection. Du Lacey grabbed his hand as she tried to stand up. She tried to explain. Just then it was Xiao. It hurts. It hurts. The painful expression on her face caused her to fiercely fall into Lian Jun's arms. There's no